The Vampire. Sweet revenge from beyond the grave. So it all started here. If he hadn't been angry at we wouldn't have had vampires today. In 1618, John William Polidori wrote On the Punishment of Death, where he made a simple but powerful point. Killing criminals through the death penalty doesn't help them become better people. He said it only condemns them to suffer forever. He asked, what if we send a soul into the afterlife in despair? What kind of justice is that? His legal writing takes on an almost Gothic tone. He portrays the criminal as a living corpse, devoid of hope and light. We turn him into a corpse, eyes dimmed, flesh wasted, a feast for worms. The unjust justice system creates vampires. To him, being a vampire is the punishment endured after death for a crime committed while living. The vampire with its lightless eyes, neither truly alive nor dead, becomes the very embodiment of eternal condemnation. Today we're diving deep into the first ever vampire tale, The Vampyre, exploring its origins, creation, and historical context. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bouquet and welcome to my horror corner, Bouquetified. The oldest vampire story in history, The Vampyre, written by John William Polidori and published in 1819, established the foundation of modern vampire literature. I think it's pretty safe to say that John William Polidori is the architect of the vampire world. As I've mentioned in my previous video, Dracula is not the first vampire story. If you really want to discover the true origins of vampire literature, then you need to get your hands on this book, my friend. And as you can see, the book itself is quite brief. And the main tale within it is even more concise. The tale starts at page 17 and it ends somewhere around 55. So that makes 38, 40 pages, something like that. There are supplementary sections at the beginning and end that detail the interesting circumstances of the book's creation. The book opens with a letter from Geneva, where Polidori describes his peaceful visits to Lake Geneva, following in the footsteps of renowned writers and intellectuals like Rousseau, Voltaire, and Lord Byron. He focuses particularly on Byron's life, providing intimate details about Byron's daily routines, social connections, and the various rumors surrounding him. Then comes the book's introduction, where he explains vampire folklore and its spread from Eastern Europe. He details popular beliefs about vampires, their bloodlust, their method of slowly killing victims, and their uncorrupted bodies. He also describes the ways people thought they could destroy vampires. But most intriguingly, he discusses a real-life vampire case that captivated newspaper readers. The case of Arnold Paul. You know what? Let me read that section to you now. As the book was written over 100 years ago, we won't have any copyright issues. I hope. In the London Journal of March 1732 is a curious and of course credible account of a particular case of vampirism, which is stated to have occurred at Madriga in Hungary. It appears that upon an examination of the commander-in-chief and magistrates of the place, they positively and unanimously affirmed that about 5 years before, a certain heyduke named Arnold Paul had been heard to say that at Kasovia on the frontiers of Turkish Serbia, he had been tormented by a vampire, but had found a way to rid himself of the evil by eating some of the earth out of the vampire's grave and rubbing himself with his blood. This precaution, however, did not prevent him from becoming a vampire himself. For about 20 or 30 days after his death and burial, many persons complained of having been tormented by him, and a deposition was made that 4 persons had been deprived of life by his attacks. To prevent further mischief, the inhabitants, having consulted their Hadagni, or Hadagnai, their chief, they took up the body and found it fresh and entirely free from corruption and emitting at the mouth, nose, and ears pure and florid blood. Proof having been thus obtained, they resorted to the accustomed remedy. A stake was driven entirely through the heart and body of Arnold Paul, at which he is reported to have cried out as dreadfully as if he had been alive. The same measures were adopted with the corpses of those persons who had previously died from vampirism, lest they should in their return become agents upon others who survived them. Alright, believe it or not, this was a real-life vampire case, or real-life vampire rumors. Moving on from this fascinating case, let me tell you how the vampire tale came to be. In May 1816, Polidori documented a historic gathering at Villa Diodati, where Lord Byron, Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, aka Mary Shelley, her sister and Percy Shelley met, the writers who would transform literature forever. At the time, Polidori was Lord Byron's personal physician and accompanied him across Europe. Now, on cozy evenings at Villa Diodati, the writers gathered around a warm fireplace, sharing spooky stories while gloomy European weather created the perfect atmosphere outside. Everyone excitedly promised to write their own tale, though in the end, only Lord Byron, Polidori, and Mary Shelley stuck with it. But oh, what magic came from those mysterious June nights. They gave us some absolutely incredible works that would change literature forever. Polidori's Vampyre and Mary Shelley's unforgettable Frankenstein. I know, right? In 1816, Polidori and Byron went their separate ways. Polidori handed over his precious story to a trusted friend in Geneva. But guess what happens next? A couple of years later, the Vampyre made a surprise appearance in the New Monthly magazine, and you won't believe this, under Lord Byron's name. Although Polidori promptly wrote letters to clarify his authorship, and Byron himself, thank God, denied writing it, poor Polidori had to wait forever to get his well-deserved credit. What a misfortune, caught between a profit-seeking publisher and Byron's celebrity status. Though he never received proper credit in his lifetime, as he unfortunately died at such a young age as 25, he achieved a subtle revenge through his story. Apparently, his vampire Lord Ruthven, the Vampyre, was unmistakably inspired by Lord Byron himself. Sweet revenge from beyond the grave. Justice indeed was served in the most literary of ways. The story follows a young man named Aubrey who finds himself drawn into the dark and seductive world of Lord Ruthven. The aristocrat, with his mesmerizing presence, charisma, and charm, moves through society like a predator and leaves a trail of ruined lives in his wake. During their travels together, when Ruthven suffers from what appears to be a fatal wound, he manipulates Aubrey into swearing an oath to maintain an absolute silence about his death for 1 year. But then, in a horrifying twist of fate, he returns from the dead. Bound by his oath, Aubrey can only watch in horror as the vampire creeps back into his life. And the final blow comes when Ruthven sets his sights on Aubrey's beloved sister. And the conclusion of this dark tale is something I'll let you discover for yourself. I don't want to spoil it too much. Maybe a little bit. So what are my thoughts on the book? As I mentioned before, the story is very short, but it can be challenging to read. Perhaps due to its period when it was written, or the author's writing style, or the lengthy sentences. I don't know what it was, but I often found myself forgetting the beginning of a sentence before its end. So I had to reread. Also, the tale isn't particularly dramatic or frightening, so it's not exclusively for horror fans either. As the first vampire story, it's very interesting to me to see how it shaped all subsequent vampire fiction. Many familiar tropes originated here, like vampires as aristocrats, their charm and attractiveness, their tendency to target young women. It all started here, just so you know. Okay, it may be mild compared to modern vampire tales, but what I find most captivating is watching the evolution of the genre. Like, one author plants a seed, and others nurture it, develop it, embellish it, and adding new elements until something entirely transformed emerges from the darkness. It's like watching a tiny seed grow into this huge, beautiful, Gothic garden of vampire stories we have today. And there is something deeply satisfying about discovering vampirism's literary origins. I don't know. I also find it particularly poetic that modern vampire fiction traces back to Polidori's feelings toward Lord Byron and the villainous character he created in response. It's funny how personal anger and resentment towards someone could spark an entirely new genre and a cultural phenomenon. Don't you think? Like, if he hadn't been angry at Lord Byron, we wouldn't have had vampires today. Yeah? Like Butterfly Effect. Should I review that movie too? Anyways, there are so many articles and essays about Polidori, Lord Byron, and vampirism triangle that I would love to explore, but I'll need more time and resources for that. But I'll definitely come back with that sometime. For now, though, we have come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to share it with your fellow horror friends to help our horror community grow. And thank you so much for watching, and I'm hoping to see you in the next video. Until then, bye! Whew, I am melting here. In May 1618, oh, other way around. In May 1816, I will have to do this whole thing one more time. Oh my god. Goodness gracious. so I had to reread it a couple of times.
You're sweating here, yeah?
I am dying here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No. Opening the window doesn't...
No, then all lighting is gonna be...
Do you want a cheesecake or not?
Yes, please. Okay, I deserve a cheesecake after this video anyway, so. Okay, today is Friday and I'm supposed to post this video on Sunday. This question is for future me. Did you make it? Well done if you made it. Go get yourself a cheesecake.